I've had many leading experts on this show, including Matthew Walker, and they've all said the same thing about sleep. They've said it's the biggest positive investment you can make in your own performance. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're consistently tired, poor decision-making will follow and eventually cause other things to fail in your life. So if you're looking to optimize your recovery, you should start looking at what you're sleeping on. Our sponsor, Helix, makes high-quality mattresses tailored to your body. It doesn't matter if you run hot, sleep on your side, or need something firm. Helix has a mattress for you. And I asked them recently to send one to a member of my team, and Juan received it. And we travel a lot, so when he's home, quality sleep really matters. And he told me he's getting the best sleep of his life. And the data backs it up, with 82% of people in a Helix study saying they saw an increase in their deep sleep. And with a 120-night trial, you've got 4 months to prove it to yourself. You can get 27% off at helixsleep.com/diary. That's helixsleep.com/diary.
What was it about you that was disruptive, though? I want some specifics.
Whenever I see a problem, I think that this is in common with anyone who starts a business. I look at the way something's done and immediately start thinking of better ways to do it. Rather than just doing what I'm told, I sort of scratch my head and think, no, this just doesn't make sense to me. Why are we doing it this way that we could do it in this other way, which is 10 times faster? I mean, one of my first ever jobs was to, with another analyst, go and count all of the jewelry items on a massive jewelry website. There must have been 1,000, to do a tally chart of the price range. And this guy started doing them by hand. So I scratched my head and wrote a little Excel script to basically scrape the website and just tally them up and go, there's your results. But they didn't want that because they were billing by the hour, and that had only taken an hour of my time rather than 20 hours. And so they could only bill me out for an hour. And they're like, no, go back and do it by hand. So that kind of stuff just drove me crazy. And I was always just looking for ways to automate, ways to do things better. I guess that's what led me into entrepreneurship.
What gave you the conviction and the confidence that you could take on such a mammoth industry with Monzo?
I mean, arrogance, naivety and arrogance, I think, in no small part. I'd already built a company called GoCardless, which is a payment processor. So that sort of taught me that, 3 young guys could get access to the payment system and actually move money around. And banking was a step up from there. It was more regulated, more complicated. But I had the background in payments, and I was an early NatWest user, or rather, when I was young and they were very old, I was a NatWest user, and I was deeply, deeply disappointed. And I think, like any founder, really a huge sort of dose of naivety. You look at a problem and think it's probably, I think if I knew then what I knew now, I would never have done it. Really, if I knew what the amount of pain and heartache that would be involved, I would never have started, but I didn't know that. And so I had a huge amount of self-confidence, huge amount of naivety, and just assumed that I could figure it out. And I think we got a really, really long way. And I mean, the company's still doing fabulously. So I'm incredibly proud of what we built.
I find that point about naivety so interesting, because it almost feels like founders like yourself need to be deluded on one end in terms of their own confidence, right? Because if you look at the stats and all the odds, they're clearly against you. So founders like yourself seem to be, deluded sounds like a negative word, but it's like, for me, I'm saying it in a positive way, almost like deluded or naive to the stats and the probability of this success.
Yeah, totally.
But also self-aware enough to listen to feedback and to not be blinded by their hypotheses.
Listen to some feedback. I mean, a lot of the feedback I got in the early days was, this is impossible. You can never do it. Go back to a day job. So I think you do have to be incredibly optimistic as well. But a little bit like investing, I'm doing a little bit of investing now. I think if you have a lot of experience, the downside is you've seen these ideas fail again and again and again. And it's really hard to then leave that baggage behind and look at a company. I looked at one yesterday. It's like, I've seen that model fail 4 times. Not I wasn't running it. Others were running it, but to, have a fresh enough mind to think, okay, maybe the timing's different, maybe the founding team's different, maybe the technology's changed. This can now work. So I think actually the benefit of being naive and even being quite young in your career is you don't have that baggage of knowing how it failed the 5 times before, which I find super interesting.
When you're looking at founders in your investments now, from your own experience of being a founder, what are the attributes you're looking for?
I mean, the really simple one is being technical. Being able to write code, I think, is just a huge, huge leg up. And all of the founders who aren't technical, and there are many great ones, I think their biggest problem at the early stage is finding a technical co-founder. So that's just a an immediate benefit. And if I could talk to people in the sort of age 12 to 18, I would basically just go and say, learn to code. You're going to have a really well-paying career for the rest of your life, and it's a great step into entrepreneurship.
Are you technical?
Yeah, I learned to code when I was 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
Built websites.
I
mean, I studied law, not computer science, but I can code. There's still code I wrote probably in the Monzo code base somewhere. I think it puts the emojis into the push notifications, but so being technical, I think, is just the easy answer. More fundamentally, I think just being really, really determined and resilient, seeing, as you said, an immovable object and either finding a way sort of round it or over it or under it or just straight through it. Being indefatigable, basically, I think is the single biggest predictor of success.
You strike me as someone that has great confidence, and I imagine that's come from, as you kind of alluded to with Go Cardless, you've built evidence over time that you could do things. So, I sometimes think of confidence as like a self-reinforcing cycle, either upwards or downwards.
I think I was more confident when I was 28 than I am now, for sure. And I think that comes with experience. I think you take enough knocks that you start to, and you realize you don't know. I think at 27, 28, I thought I knew everything. And now I realize I like to think I know a lot about a lot of things, but I realize I don't. And so I'm still a confident person, I'd guess. But if you put me in front of my 27-year-old self, I think you would see two different people.
Maybe less naivety. Maybe that'd be a stark
exactly.
difference,
Yeah,
right?
I've seen the failures a few times now.
Because I was saying that because there's a lot of young people in my DMs that are dreaming big dreams like yours, but they would just never have the confidence or conviction to pursue them. So I was wondering, I'm trying to get to the crux of what made you so starkly different from all of the young people that have, or at least verbalize equally big dreams.
I think I'm also just really impulsive. So I think quite self-confident, but I've taken quite big life decisions without very much reflection. And that's worked out really well. I'm hugely privileged. I've grown up in the UK, which I think is an enormous privilege compared to a lot, people in my position, but growing up in rural Africa are not going to have the same opportunities. I have great education. I had parents who supported me, and I knew I could take risk because if that risk didn't pay off, I have that safety net. And so, yes, I was confident. I think, yes, I was impulsive, but that was enabled from a place of huge privilege because I could take the risk. And I actually think people in this country, with great supportive families, don't take enough risk in general. I think, people go into, pretty safe careers in law or consulting or whatever. And I think they could, do more interesting things, have more impact, make more money if that's what drives you by taking more risk. And I just don't think they do. And I think I put myself on the risk-loving end of the spectrum. And so I've quit jobs and moved countries, with like hours notice. I started Go Cardless with Matt Hiroki because I quit my consulting job to go to a bigger consultancy. And in that gardening leave, I just got bored. I had 3 months off and they said, let's start a website. And I said, yes. And then Y Combinator said, come out and interview. And we did. And we got the offer to do Y Combinator and their investment about 3 days before my McKinsey start date. So I just sort of said, this sounds fun. I'll do this startup thing instead.